Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. I'm a human who cares about supporting other humans. On this podcast, we'll explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who have found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience with them, where they've been stuck, what it feels like, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others. I believe that when we feel more connected and seen, magic can happen. Hey everybody, Paul here, and it is episode 1 of Off the Comma, the podcast. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit nervous. It's a scary thing to do, right? But that's what we're here for. It's all about off the comma, and it's about making change for ourselves and learning about ourselves and growing and stretching ourselves. So today's episode is going to be a little bit shorter. It's just going to be me talking. That just feels weird. I'm sitting here with headphones on and a microphone, and I'm just talking, staring into the room. But here we go. Here's what I want to accomplish on this episode, particularly for folks who are just joining or, down the road when we've had a bunch of episodes and people stumble on us and find us and say, what's this podcast about? I want to cover, who am I? Why am I here doing this podcast? Then I want to also talk about why I'm here, why it's important, why is such an important element of off the comma and exploring. I want to explain and talk a little bit about what sitting on a comma is or means. And then also talk about what is off the comma and what you can expect from the podcast and what you might be able to expect from yourself listening to the podcast and next steps. So that's kind of what I want to talk about the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. Who am I? Well, I am going to start with who I am as a human and as a person. I am a thinker. I'm a problem solver. I'm an explorer. I'm a storyteller. And I am a humorist, a joke teller. And I like to have fun. So no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's work or play, family, relationships, social, whatever, that's kind of what you can expect from me. On the other side of that, I'm also prone to overthinking and fixing and people pleasing and getting bored. And so, there's multiple parts to all of us at all times. And so I want to acknowledge the fun parts and the parts that we might consider strengths, and also acknowledge the parts that sometimes have me sitting on a comma and feeling stuck. So whole lot more to know about me. I've taken all of the assessments. I've spent time on the counselor's couch. I've worked with a ton of coaches. And so just like all of you, I'm about as simple and as complex as each and every one of you might be. So we'll be exploring that along with, all of the guests that I have on the podcast as we go along. But professionally, I am a consultant and a life coach. I have an extensive career and background in corporate America, primarily in the retail and retail healthcare sectors. But my career, aside from, my early days, college and high school, working in retail, working in the malls or what have you, my career has been in professional training and development. So I have designed and developed and delivered workshops. I've spoken to audiences from 5 to 500. I've designed training curriculum. I've actually built and run training departments for a couple of organizations, and I've done training and development as an external consultant for a wide variety of clients. And that's not just important because of the kind of work that I do. I think it's really important because of the fact that my entire career, I have been with side by side and in the presence of learners, people who are learning. And so I am really passionate about that. It is a part of who I am. It's in my DNA. We use that phrase a lot here in the States. But I have a unique perspective into what it's like for people to go through the process of noticing, observing, listening, asking questions, and learning. So I think you'll see that informs a lot of what I do here. It certainly has informed my approach as a life coach as well. So for fun, I enjoy heights, all things heights. I love flying. I've been skydiving twice and hot air balloons. I go to the tops of all the buildings, the tall buildings in all the cities that I go to. So it's pretty cool. I love the big picture. I love seeing the landscape out in front of me. And if I had wings, I would definitely fly. love travel. I love figuring things out. As I mentioned earlier, and as all of you are probably experiencing as well, I also struggle with sitting on a comma sometimes. So why am I here? I am here as much for me and my own growth and development as I am to support all of you. I'm here to do the work. When I went through my coach training back in 2021 during the pandemic, all of us were sitting on our own commas and having our own experiences with pauses and feeling stuck. When I went through the coach training, I did it to see what it would do for me, how it would stretch me, how it would change me, how it would help me grow. And, I think it was kind of obvious. I just took it for granted that I would probably use it in a professional practice or set up a coaching practice. But I wanted the experience of the coach training. I wanted to actually look in the mirror. I wanted to do all of that inner work. And boy, did that pay off for me. So why am I here? I'm here to do the work and to continue to do the work and to experience everything that creating a podcast and interviewing guests of all walks of life will do. I'm here for the discomfort. I'm here for everything that I'm going to learn. And I'm also here to present mirrors for all of you. I want to create a space where we can talk to each other about ourselves, about our experiences, and not be in a place of judgment or that there's a right way to do things or that there's the best way to do things. This podcast is going to be less about me telling people what to do or interviewing people who have the answers, and more about talking to people like ourselves. What was their experience with being stuck and sitting on a comma? What did they learn? What did they notice? What was it like for them? What did they feel? And then what did they do to get off the comma? Or what are they doing to get off the comma? Or what are they hoping to do to get off the comma? Sitting on a comma is that point in your life where you feel stuck. Things are on pause. Maybe you feel lost. Something in some or many parts of your life has come to a standstill. And so when you're sitting on a comma, you're at a point in life where you're kind of stuck. Things aren't moving. And you might use different words to describe it. But generally, when we're sitting on a comma, we are focused on and dwelling on the stuckness. We are lingering in the past. What happened? What brought us here? Why was this a good thing or a bad thing? And then we start to think about the future. Like, I just want to be off the comma. I just want to figure it out. I want clarity. I want to be moving forward. And a lot of times what we find or overlook, I should say, is that when we're sitting on a comma, that is in and of itself a place to be. So what we'll also be exploring here on this podcast is what it's like to be on the comma. What's the value of staying there or being there, and what could happen while you're on the comma? So yes, we'll focus on what brought us here. We'll talk about where we're going, but we're also going to talk about what happens on the comma. How can we actually gain value and insight from right where we are, right where we sit in that place of feeling stuck, feeling like we're not moving. And then from that, we'll see how people move forward to get off the comma. So what you're not going to find here on Off the Comma is wealth worship, and you're not going to find success envy. So if I do end up someday interviewing people who have some degree of celebrity or fame, then they're going to go through the same inquiries and answer the same questions as everyone else. What I want to do is create a space where we see each other, we see ourselves in each other, and that we have an opportunity to feel connected, to feel like we are not alone, and that we can see the possibility in ourselves through the capability in others. So it's just kind of a light touch on what I want to accomplish here. That's what I want to create. And that's what I want to create for all of you. I want to be able to give you a place to feel inspired and empowered. And you know what? We're going to figure it out as we go. what can you expect from the podcast? So each episode, with the exception, I'm sure there will be some episodes where I'll pop in and kind of talk about some things or maybe do a little kind of verbal journaling, if you will. But our episodes are going to be interviewing people. I may do this by myself. I may do this with someone else. I may interview multiple people, but I'm going to ask the same questions of each person that I interview. The podcast will be premised on these same kind of key inquiries, if you will, about what people's experience is with sitting on a comma, what they noticed about themselves while sitting on the comma, what they learned from it, and what they're doing to get off the comma. That's really going to be the framework of each episode. What we're going to find is that every person's experiences will be unique as their fingerprints, and yet we'll see themes, we'll see similarities, we'll see and hear things that will help us feel connected. So the idea is that each episode is an interview. There is no expert advice. There is only people sharing what it was like for them and what worked for them and what they did. And what I want for all of you is to be able to be inspired, to walk away with thoughts and ideas or even just observations. Each episode is probably going to inspire or prompt or kind of trigger something within you. So at the end of each episode, I invite you to reflect. I invite you to think about what you heard. And I strongly encourage you to grab a notebook, or even if it's just a napkin or piece of scratch paper, what have you, write down what your thoughts are after each episode. I can't tell you how powerful that has been for me. You hear all of the influencers and the self-help gurus, and of course, therapists and coaches and counselors talk about the power of journaling and writing things down. And, I invite you, if you already have a journaling practice, to write about what you hear in these episodes. And if you don't have a journaling practice, consider starting one, or just grab a notebook and just write. There's no rules here. The best advice I ever got from one of my coach trainers was to let it be freestyle. Just write down whatever comes to mind. Don't put any rules around it. Don't expect each entry to be a certain way or to have to build, all of your entries to be consistent or any of that crap, right? The whole objective is to get it out of your head and onto paper where you can look at it from a different point of view. So that's me rambling about Off the Comma. A lot to come and a lot to explore in Off the Comma. I'm excited about it. This has been a personal passion of mine. I will say to you that one of the biggest revelations that the universe brought to me in 2021, when I was really sitting on a big frickin' comma, I literally was just like up against a wall and in my head one day and completely paralyzed with all of this stuckness that I was experiencing. I had to put everything down, and I just went for a walk, a park that's near where I live. And I was just walking. Like, that's all I could do was just move my fucking feet and start walking. And all the thoughts were swirling in my head. And in the midst of all of those thoughts, there was this little voice that came up, and it said, "You don't seem to be all that great at getting yourself unstuck, but boy, do a lot of people tell you how good you are at helping them get unstuck." And I could debate the language of that voice. We'll save that for another episode. But what really came out of that was getting myself off the comma means helping other people get off the comma. And for the next 45 minutes, this stream of consciousness, all of these thoughts and ideas just started coming, and the door opened up for me. And so, to come back to why am I here and why Off the Comma and why this podcast is because the way I get unstuck every day is to find ways to help other people get unstuck, or at least look at what being stuck is like in a different way, to reframe it. That's the thing. That's what Off the Comma is all about, right? And I'm excited about the journey. So that is episode 1. I have done the thing. I don't know how long we're at right now. My producer's going to tell me, but here we go. Well, let's get the journey started and see what happens, and see ourselves in each other, and and see what kind of beauty can come up for us when we are feeling stuck in life, because it's nothing but opportunity. It's nothing but possibility. So I look forward to spending time with all of you, and you can find me at offthecomma.com. And each episode's show notes will have links to the people's resources and the people's bios that we're interviewing. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to seeing you on future episodes. And drop a note, send me a comment, hit my social media profiles, give me some feedback. I love to hear your thoughts and ideas. We will see you on the very next episode. Have a great rest of your week. I invite you to think about what you learned from this conversation, and I encourage you to write it down. I can't tell you how magical it can be to set aside your expectations and let the thoughts flow out of your head and onto paper. Freestyle journaling has been a powerful practice in my life. You never know what you might discover about yourself. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. Follow me on social media at Off the Comma. And be sure to like this episode and follow the podcast. If you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. As always, keep noticing. We'll see you next time.